right, welcome to the Management Intensive Roundtable. And Eric, you opened Capture. Thank you. I'm just going to say
We'll
use.
see what it does.
Yeah, we'll just say I just said yes. I just said yes to use app, so we can do multiple and just kind of see how see what happens. Okay, welcome to the Management Intensive Roundtable, and we have 3 guests here today as we talk about the state of the training industry, what's going on, the latest in talent management from the view of your expertise. So this is great because we have 3 completely different experts on our roundtable today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let each of you say your name and also to just give a very brief bio or explanation of what you do now. And then I will start going through some questions and then we'll round up with some discussion about the management intensive program and some pros and benefits and all that sort of thing. So Janine, I'm going to start with you. So Janine, hit it.
I'm Janine Truitt. I'm the Chief Innovations Officer for Talent Think Innovations, LLC. It's a talent management consulting firm. I've spent over 9 years in recruitment and talent management and diversity sectors, and right now basically just working with customers on innovative strategies for better managing their talent.
Okay, so Janine, I'm going to ask you to put your tablet lower so we can see more of your completely gorgeous face. Ah, there we are! And although we don't need to ask this, but we're going to, what part of the country are you from?
I am from New York. I'm in Long Island, New York, Port Jefferson Station to be exact.
Okay, very good.
Cool.
We could tell, but we wanted to ask anyway. Okay, next we have Eric.
Great, thank you. Eric Kneitzke. I am sitting in Mason City, Iowa, which is 2 hours north of Des Moines and 2 hours south of Minneapolis. And my concentration is I work at a community college in the continuing education department, and I help manage relationships, long-term relationships with major employers in this region that are looking for staff development training, and also manage public enrollment, and been doing quite a bit with synchronous long-distance learning approaches.
Excellent. I do want to loop back to Janine for a second, then I'm going to loop to Eric because I know a little bit more about your background than what you're sharing. Janine also is a very active HR blogger. That's how we met. We actually met on Twitter. She was also named to the top 100 most social HR experts on Huffington Post. She's also on that list. So that's another little piece that I want to add to that. Eric has an interesting background because he's not originally from the community college or the upper education level. He actually has a marketing background. Tell us a little bit more about that, Eric.
In another life, I was in the private sector. I worked for manufacturers of both consumer durables, luxury goods such as boats and watercraft. I was in that industry for over 15 years and managed people's marketing and sales efforts. And I moved into the industrial category. That's what landed me in Iowa, where I work with mostly B2B sector, business to business. So I have a blend of different approaches for both consumers and business. Quite a bit of background in terms of television, video, and internet.
So what's interesting about my experience with Eric is he has this breadth of background in marketing, but also he is really an official technology geek. Although he may or may say that, I don't know, but he just loves it. So it's intuitive for him. So he's marrying a lot of his experience and now partnering with NIAC to deliver distance learning and other and using that technology to do that. So it's a really cool mix that he has as well. So, all right, now we're going to jump to Candy.
Okay. Now, I thought you said that you met Eric at IAL. Did you meet Eric at IAL?
I knew him. I met him through Angela initially. So I've done some work at NIAC.
Okay. Because I spoke at the IAL conference too, so I thought maybe I had met Eric before.
We did, but you were in quite a crowd. It was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Candy Worley from Kansas City, Missouri. And I have owned my own speaking company, SBG Services, for 14 years now. 14 years.
Woo!
And but I've been speaking for about 25 years. Started with Hallmark Cards, doing some speaking for them. Decided I wanted to do this full time. Been speaking ever since. Travel all over the country, nationally as well as internationally, doing a lot of keynotes, which also leads to workshops with. People ask me, what's your niche? And I'm like, anybody who works with people, period. Anybody who works with people, I can teach them something. And my main talk is called "It Takes Four to Tango," and it's basically the personality differences made fun. And I met Joanne when I was contracting with National Seminars Group, and we used to do women's conferences together, creativity conference together, and leadership conferences together, and just became truly soul sisters. And we haven't been separated since.
Yes, we could tell you stories about our travels across the country. But we won't get into that right now.
Right. But that's a little bit about me.
Now, you do have a little bit more about your background that I know. Your claim to fame is...
I used to be a Kansas City Chiefs chiefess. So, and see, it's so funny. It's like I have 2 degrees. I've written a bunch of books. I got this, I got that. But I'm telling you, my friends, as soon as I say I was a Chiefs cheerleader, it's like my credibility goes through the roof.
Yeah, usually it's supposed to work the other way around.
I know. It's 32 years ago. People don't care. They don't care. So I'm going to ride it till I die.
Yeah, very good. Well, again, we're grateful to have you on the call. You can tell from our experts roundtable that there is definitely some diversity in this group. We had several other people that were invited that really wanted to be here and couldn't make it. But we're going to have a great and lively conversation with the 3 that we have here. So the first thing I wanted to do is to start off with the question, what do you feel is really the state of the employee training and development industry right now? From your perspective, what do you think is the state of skill development? And I'm going to add it to that skill gap, or, employee training. What do you think is the state of it? I'm going to go back to Janine for that first question.
Well, I think training and development is pretty much static at the moment and has been for a few years now. Companies aren't investing as much money as they used to in training and development for many different reasons. They're looking for a more seasoned candidate to come through the door that can pretty much, walk on water the moment that they walk in. So, they've just kind of decided to leave people where they are and train kind of just in time, which is not really working very well, and probably has created a lot of the talk about skills gaps and things of that nature that we're hearing about now. I don't think it's so much about the fact that people don't have the capacity or ability to learn new things. It's they're not being given the chance.
Okay, I think that's kind of interesting, because what I'm hearing you say is that hiring managers have a certain expectation of where they want people to be, and they almost are not living in reality, that they're resisting the fact that they have got to invest, that they've got to get people up to speed, and maybe that's the reason for the employment gap, because they're wanting people to be at a certain place they're not, and they're resisting the reality of the fact that they're going to have to invest in training. Is that how you'd see it?
Agreed. And I think that even for the people that are tenured that, allegedly could walk on water as they walk into your organization, I think they're missing the point that even those people require some training, some sort of assimilation into the organization. So all around, you're setting people up for failure as they walk through the door. And, no matter if you find that person that is actually the ideal candidate or the person that just requires more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because in my own head, from the topics that I teach, I always think that there should be, like, for an onboarding, some core requirements of training, like time management, collaboration, team collaboration. Seriously, just fundamental, built into onboarding some key functionality, some key performance matrix right from the very beginning. That's my view.
I feel like, I'm probably, one of the professionals that remember that. I mean, I still have tons and tons of books and training materials from back when I first started working. You don't see that anymore. I mean, it's even today. You just see it anymore.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, well, Eric, let's hear your view, particularly since you're in the community college. I know NIAC, by the way, is a unique community college because it serves, it's almost like it's a pseudo 4-year because you even have like dorms for students. So you have an expanded. I don't think people understand the role of community colleges in Iowa. It's something that I've learned working with you, that it's a little bit more substantial than some traditional community colleges in other parts of the country. So first of all, I want you to expand on the role of community colleges in Iowa and then answer the question.
Okay, sure. Well, like you mentioned, we're in a unique position just because we are in a rural community. I mean, the surrounding nine counties, there's 100,000 people. So, not a very densely populated part of the world. There's high expectations in terms of the education in Iowa is nationally recognized in many instances. Like our local high schools is ranked bronze or one of the top 26% of high schools in the nation.
Wow.
And people commit quite a bit to educating their kids. And the role that the community college plays is unique in that we're working with folks that are just coming right out of high school, as well as, like you mentioned, Jeanine mentioned, on the skills gap. We're working with people that might have been or are in a role for a long period of time and need to kind of rehab their skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not familiar with the community colleges, and I'm just really astounded by the services they provide and the opportunities that most employers are totally unaware of that a community college could bring in helping them staff up or really reskill the folks that they have. So
right.
A lot of the time that I spend is helping people reskill.
So what's interesting about that, before you go into answering the question, is, in the whole issue of skills gap and retooling that a lot of Washington is initiating, my view is that the community colleges plays a pretty, and technical colleges, which I know some of the stuff that NIAC offers, plays a very substantial or significant role in that skills gap retooling or retraining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. You're called on by. I have to kind of go back to the question that you asked in terms of what I'm noticing is the employers don't necessarily know what they need. It's like when I work with consumers on, say, a purchase of something, they talk about what their needs are in general terms, but aren't very specific because a lot of times they haven't gone through and really examined it or gone about the process in a very thoughtful manner. So mostly they're reacting. And so a lot of times when you hear things in the news, community colleges are supposed to react to the situation and be somewhat nimble. And that's what the community college role is to kind of react to market forces and help as much as possible. So that's kind of a unique position because you do have a lot of people looking to it as a resource, but not necessarily know what kind of a resource it could be or that it is.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because that, to answer the question, what's the state of employee training and development, part of your answer is it's reactive. And it reminds me of when I was in the seminar industry, it's almost like an issue in a company would be solved by a title of a seminar. Instead of, go ahead.
Well, you keyed on something there. And unfortunately, what I'm finding, and just as an observation, is the title means most everything in terms of people making a selection. And for the past 2 years, I've been tracking and actually working with my instructors to turn some of their more positive titles negative.
Oh, so give me an example.
Well, instead of coaching and exploring, or like a title in terms of exploring and coaching your team, that's turned into how to work with difficult people.
Okay.
Title, I'll have 10 people maybe interested. The second title, I'll have a room full.
Okay, so this is very interesting. This is like a total a segue, but part of addressing the need of employee training and development has to do with marketing. Oh, the irony, because that's your background and expertise, Eric. but it is, how do you get people to make decisions that's best for their employee training development when they're making them based on seminars or workshops, etc. I mean, I find that fascinating because I just know, Eric, that you like track the numbers and try to see. I mean, I think it's very informative to get people attracted to that. So, in terms of your experience with the state of employee training, they're making reactive decisions. How much money are they willing to spend? Okay, first of all, two things. How much money are they willing to spend? And where do you see the skills gap? What are people saying? Okay, here are the skills gap. There's technical skills gaps, and then there's soft skills gap.
Yeah, and I think the technical skills gap are usually easier for an employer to identify. It's the soft skills gap, and it goes back to what was mentioned earlier in terms of the onboarding process is non-existent with most of the people that I work with, and there's been a very significant flattening of the workforce in terms of very little new rehire. A lot of times the employers, based on their business model, are looking to extract as much from the labor pool that they can. So they're expecting people that they might have on board or been with them for a number of years to play multiple roles. So as an example, a very recent one is an employee of, say, 15 years with the same manufacturer, with no college background, attained the college or a high school degree, has moved into the role of managing two departments with 75 employees with no prior management or coaching skills.
You're kidding.
No, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah, that's a great example, by the way. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. We're going to circle back to that. Let's pop to Candy real quick and answer the initial question, then we'll circle back around. Candy, we got a mouthful from Eric already about the state of employee training and development. From your purview, because you've traveled all over the country, all over the world, you spoke all over the world. What are you seeing now?
Okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing, and then I've got comments for everything that everybody said because I'm about to jump out of my seat.
Okay.
Because what they said is brilliant. I think you picked the right people for your board, and I haven't even met the other two. What I'm seeing and what I am begged for, what I am hired for, is employee engagement.
Yes,
and leadership engagement.
That's a new buzzword, employee engagement. I'm saying that.
Is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so, and the culture. So people are calling me saying, we're not getting along. I saw you do It Takes Four to Tango with that keynote. That's exactly what we need. Our people need to get to know one another so they understand one another better. So that's what I'm seeing. And in my business, I'm seeing a rise in, and it's mostly the latter part of last year and this year. I'm seeing a rise in training. But it's soft skills. It's soft skills, it's engagement, and this is huge, it's energy. Because, see, we've got those generations coming up that have to have more than just lecture. So I truly believe that's why, Joanne, you and I get hired so much more, is because we're interactive. We facilitate. We want to hear from them, because I just heard or read an article on something about the state of people learning today. They want to be able to be part of that training. They want to be able to voice their opinions to me.
To be talked to.
Exactly. To me and to one another. And I'm going to tell you, girl, when I heard that, I thought that's what I've been doing the whole time. But now it's trendy. Joanne, you and I are the trend now.
Yeah, after we've been teaching it for 15 years and doing it for 15
years. Yeah, that's what everybody wants because it works. So that's what I've seen. We got to get our people, we got to get them more engaged with one another. We want them to get along, and the energy that you bring. That's what I hear. Okay? Now, what I have to say about when Janine said everybody's running on a just in time.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to somehow use that language in the marketing stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's brilliant because that is what everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the just in time. It's like things have already been broken for a while, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
then they throw us to the wolves. They throw us to the wolves,
And then
and
they
then
want one experience to fix everything
everything.
that
Yeah,
they've let
and see,
go.
and that
Yeah.
and Joanne, you know, that's where I changed because I just used to Janine and Eric. I used to just kind of want to be your one. I'll come in, make you laugh, teach you something. Don't care if I ever see you again. I'm gonna say it out loud. Well, I'm not like that anymore. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like that anymore because I have decided I don't mind working with people, especially leadership who believes in their people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work with you, but I'm not going to work with somebody that's fix them. I'm okay.
Yeah.
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 And
I
go ahead, Candy.
okay. I love what Eric said. What Eric said is turn that into a negative. And what I wrote,
Mm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember who said this. It's a speaker that we know. I'll think of it later. But she used to call it picking at the wound,
Ah.
which is a gross saying, but it is. It's you're picking at the wound. That's what's going to make them buy. Picking
Mm-hmm.
at the wound.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last thing, Eric. It's so funny because putting those high schoolers that's been there for 2 years, putting them in management. I've heard a speaker. It's like they wave. You know who it was, Joanne? It was Joe Gilliam.
Ah.
They wave their magic wand. You are a leader. Period. That's all they get.
Yeah.
the blessing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so really, you know, it's funny. This is really fascinating about Eric's comment about trying to extract more from people who've been there for a long time, getting responsibility. It's like setting people up to fail with no support or no help, and that's where an investment in talent management comes in. So I want to circle back then to Janine. Janine, first, if there's any other comments you have from the other two roundtable experts, and then I'm going to follow up with the next question.
Just that I love that Candy kind of said that she used to be the person that wanted to be in and out, because I think that I've been kind of that person, but I'm realizing that there's more value in sticking around with some of these people, especially if they want to make that investment, because I mean, that's what my business is all about as well. So it was a mirror image for a second there. Oh.
Yeah.
Good.
So the next question then leads into just what is sort of the state of talent management, but I'm going to ask Janine your perspective as from a recruiter. What do you see in the people? Because I know you've read a lot of resumes. And as a former recruiter myself, I know what that's like. So what are you seeing in the general work population? I think it's interesting for Candy to know that, interesting for Eric to know that from a recruiter standpoint, from the people in the resumes that you're reading. What are you seeing these days?
I think for the first time in my career, I'm seeing such a wide variety from a demographic standpoint in professionals. I mean, you literally have the people that have been in the workforce for 25 years competing with, you know, the student right out of college.
Wow.
And even those that are unskilled. And that is a peculiar situation that I didn't ever think I would see.
You mean competing for the same jobs?
For the same jobs.
Wow.
You know, it really is a feast or famine kind of situation. You know, almost saddening in a sense, because you see people that have had great careers and they're now going for, you know, there's no shame in any job, but they're going for those entry level positions, and you're just kind of shaking your head saying, what is going on? I mean, clearly they're going to be qualified to do it. They've done that and then some, but you know, the question, you know, just the questions around it, you don't have the buy-in from the hiring managers on those people because they're either overqualified or they're going to leave in, you know, 2-3 years, or they don't want the person that they think is going to retire in 2 years. And, you know, I have to have the conversation with them like, look, this is a brand new economy. It's a brand new situation. These people there is no retirement. There is no retirement.
Right.
So we can't even go there. And in terms of being overqualified, you know what? These people have to sustain themselves. You have to give them a chance. Whereas I used to be able to whittle down my slate to a few select people very easily. Not so much anymore. Now, the interviews that used to be 3 to 5 people are now, 7 to 10.
Wow.
Depending,
Right.
because you have to, especially for me working in the federal contractor space, once they meet, you have to see them. So, it presents a lot of different challenges, largely on trying to educate the hiring managers and the people at these companies that, people are people and they're viable, and you have to give them a chance at least to present their skills to you.
Right.
And then, from there, what you do is your business. But I understand their challenge as well, because, do I want the young person that is malleable and doesn't really have bad habits yet, or do I want this other person that's going to come with more experience but might not be as malleable? So, it's a conundrum all the way around.
Right.
But,
That's and that's it's great hearing it from. That's why I'm glad you're on the roundtable, because I know there's been lots of blogging, and even President Obama working with, some of the CEOs didn't even realize that if, the chronically unemployed, it's a policy not to hire them, and that some CEOs didn't even realize that was part of their own HR policy. Which I think is fascinating. So what it speaks to, and I hear a running theme, and that is the hiring managers are also going to be some of the other key decision makers for employee training and development. So what I'm hearing is there may be a bit of a block or need to educate those decision makers in a couple of different ways: how to look at talent differently, hiring and selection, and then in that, how to look at, because I think a lot of that's tied to soft skills too. What's going to be more useful for them, to hire someone who's a more skilled soft skills person, or hire a young person right out of college that then you have to invest in a lot more soft skills training to get them up to speed to be a contributing, collaborative, team member. I think that's kind of a catch-22. So I'm going to jump to Eric, and I'd like to hear your experience, Eric, on the conversations you're having with decision makers. And so that's and that really speaks to the state of talent management.
Well, I think Janine hit it right on the head, because right now, because of the role that I play, I conduct training for HR professionals through the SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers. So we actually conduct training for people that have maybe just gotten into the role of becoming an HR manager with the Essentials course offering, and those that have, say, been long-term 10 or 15 years that are seeking a certification. And what I find with both sets of groups is they become the de facto training heads for their companies, but not necessarily to have a background. Again, organizations have flattened. And when I listen to the conversations in terms of employment law and the things that, Janine hit on again about practices that have been long-standing, they're looking back, they're not looking forward.
That's
so the group that I deal with continually in HR are essentially they're the hardest people to sell, because they've got the least background in the opportunity set. They look at everything as if they do an ROI, they look at it as a cost benefit, and it's a tough and soft skill and an intangible thing to see an immediate effect. So that's the challenge, is getting through these gatekeepers in HR based on having, my experience with dealing with them on many different levels. They're the ones that make the selections for the employees. Many times the employees don't get a chance because the training is being allocated on a per head basis. They don't get to pick and choose the courses they want. The HR person gets to say, these are the courses that will benefit the person, which is really contrary to what education's about.
Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma too, because it's like they need so much to justify the cost that they think that a certain kind of training, I'm putting that in quotes, is going to hopefully spray and pray, bring some sort of return, some sort of return on investment, So the more hardcore the topic, the more possibility there's going to be some hopefully some return on investment, though measuring it is still, up in the air and all that sort of thing. So
let me I'll share this with you, because there are we have millions of dollars of training dollars that are not used by companies today. In other words, the state has approved them and will actually underwrite the cost. And many times, the employer pays maybe 20 cents on the dollar. It will still go unspent because we can't make the time to release the employee for the training.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know that Georgia
Yeah,
has training credits that they can apply to, their as a tax deduction, training credits. But I know you also have allocated money in Iowa.
But
Yeah.
that's an opportunity nationally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, in access to the employees, it might have to be outside normal work hours.
Mm. Yeah, and that's where the online distance learning value comes in, which I know, Eric, you've experienced
Yep.
a significant uptick in the NIAC offerings and participation because of the online offerings or the broadcasting offerings, because Eric is doing some great work with broadcasting live trainings online. So, he's doing some great work with the technology aspect of it as well. Kendi, any comments on what Janine has shared relating to the state of talent management and the decision makers?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense on exactly what she's saying, which is sad to me. I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, that would be the hardest thing. Here's what I didn't get, Joanne, what you were saying that because I don't know, it must have cut out or something. What did you say about Obama and it's a law, like CEOs don't know that it's a law that they can't hire who?
No, it's not a law. It's not a law, but it's a very common policy to not hire the chronically employed. Look, anybody who's been employed more than 6 months, in some cases, they will not be even considered for hiring.
Wow.
And some CEOs don't even know that's a part of their own practice in their own companies. Janine, do you want to speak to that more?
Oh yeah, I mean, I should hope people don't have that on the books, but certainly in practice, I mean,
yeah,
I mean that's just judging, but certainly in practice, you kind of know your organization, and it's in fact true. I mean, if you have somebody that's been out of work for 2 to 3 years, the sentiment is, well, they're not current. So could have been working for 20, 25 years and know their craft well, but 3 years will be the thing to do them in.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. It's sad, but that makes sense.
Yeah. But then from a political policy standpoint, it's the perpetual, then, then unemployment, someone could actually be employed. See, I think that a lot of the employment challenges are, I read an article, I think I had put it on my blog, that CEOs are blaming their own HR people for the employment gap. Because they're not why do we have all these openings, and they're blaming their HR people for not filling the openings.
But who of you have tried to interview or send a resume in today's environment? Have you guys done it?
You mean trying to? Yeah. Well, yeah. I actually, for some of my career coaching clients, a lot of it's done online, and it's incredibly frustrating. Is that what you're referencing, Eric?
Well, what I'm saying is I used to recruit in the finance category, and we used a product called AIRS, which is one of the leading, actually it goes out at mines, resumes. And so what you'll find is at the very tip of this spear, you have HR people that set up parameters when they do a search for a candidate that, to what Janine said, blocks them right out for further review. Because you'll set up the search engine.
Right.
You'll go out and mine hundreds of resumes, and you'll set up, well, they can't have been unemployed for this period of time.
Right.
We want
Great point.
this particular category. And usually a more junior person is doing that within the organization and then making that recommendation based on their gleaning of the resumes to present to the senior HR person.
Right.
Who doesn't have the benefit of looking through the stack.
Right.
So it's a pretty fundamental thing that's going on. I personally have been interviewed hundreds of times for a number of positions in the last 10 years. And just like Janine said, I was unemployed for a period of 18 months, made it look like I was consulting, which I was, in order to even have a conversation. But, when you're earning 6 figures consistently, it's tough to readjust your skills and your earnings to meet today's what the employers are presenting today. That's why I think there's a huge opportunity for people in their mid 40s and above to recast their skills so they're more employable.
Yeah, it's really kind of taking a fresh look at who you are. It's like rebranding, rebranding yourself in your own professional space, or looking in different industries and just redefining your skills in different industries as well.
Yeah.
So,
well,
well,
I tell you, Joanne,
yeah.
Joanne, if this doesn't give us, if this doesn't give us the gumption to really make our businesses work as an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, I don't
Yeah.
ever. There's no way I could get a job nowadays. I spent 14 years. Are you kidding me?
Well, there is a point there for motivation.
I know.
Yeah, just when you think so you're tired of running your own business, like, well, I'm going to keep.
It's not so bad.
Yeah, I'm going to keep pushing. Right, exactly. That's a great point. Well, we're going to finish up with a couple final questions related to the Management Intensive. The Management Intensive is a project that you guys know I've been working on for quite a while, and it's finally in the final stages of getting ready to be launched. And I do consider it a bit unique in the marketplace, and I know that you've all had a chance to review it. So what I'd like to do is take a moment to have you guys share from some of the challenges that we've already discussed about talent management, employee training development. What could be some of the advantages of the Management Intensive? Basically, it is an sourced from online, but it is a 12-week structured rapid ramp-up management development program. And it is meant to, it also has a component of personal coaching where desired, as well as managers roundtables, or what we would call group coaching. And it helps people go through a very structured curriculum, and also tracks the outcomes of the learning and the application of the action items. It tracks all that real time. So that by the end of the 12 weeks, they have an actually comprehensive notebook of all the things that they've learned. And also too, they've gone through some core competency models, and they've also measured any kind of initial behaviors that they've been initiating to make changes. So that's really the core summary of it. And you guys have had some exposure to it. So I'm going to go to you, Janine, first, because you and I had a very interesting conversation about how this particular product could be positioned in the marketplace. So share with me just your overall thoughts of the program and some ideas on how people could, in hiring managers, could benefit from this program.
So I think the product is great for not just one level of, training and development. So obviously there's a lot of focus on leadership these days, but I see this as something that, janitor in the company that just aspires to do more can do something with it and learn, just the same as somebody that's maybe going into a management role. I mean, leadership skills are needed at every level, and I see this as something that can cater to every level, depending on what your background and acumen is. Certainly the price point to me makes very sense. It's very tailored and has very, tiered options for the person that either wants to take this on their own because their company won't invest in them, or it's just priced right for the company that might be strapped but realizes that they need to provide some sort of training to their people. So I think that's nice. And I think the fact that people are so busy for busy's sake, of course, the fact that it's online and it's a distant kind of learning, you can kind of pace yourself, is a really nice option. That's really where it's at now. A lot of people don't have time to spend in a classroom or in a seminar anymore. So when they can do things on the fly and learn, and not just learn from a sense of ingesting information and regurgitating it, but actually having something tangible after that they can go back and look at and use, as they need, I think that's extremely important. And I told you that when we spoke, it's not just about ingesting and regurgitating. Like, are you retaining these things that you're trying to drive home? And the fact that you've kind of made it an integrated kind of learning model where they can have something tangible, throughout their career to look back on and say, oh yeah, I remember that. That makes sense. I think that's extremely important.
Hmm. You also had a very interesting idea I would have never thought of, and that is using it as a way of like an onboarding tool for new managers, and also
Mm.
even maybe flushing out people that are on a 60 or 90-day temporary ramp up.
I've seen, whereas years ago you would have mandatory supervisor trainings and they were given many, times during the year. Now I'm seeing where it's just like go to work. It's all about productivity.
Mm,
So something like this would be great for your low level, middle line managers, that they could get some kind of semblance of how to manage because a lot of these people have no clue whatsoever. They're just thrust into these leadership positions and as we said before, just set up to fail. This is very intuitive for anybody at any level to kind of pick up and take away some good skills that at least gives them a baseline. It's
hmm,
not
baseline.
everything, but a baseline
Yeah.
for being a good supervisor manager.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great way to frame it too, as a baseline as well.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Eric.
Oh, I like a number of the points that Janine made, but the tiered approach, having the one that people can explore at their own pace during that 12 weeks. And I just like to focus on I think what's unique about yours is I just completed my master's last year, and it was completely online. And the thing that I was desperate for really was to be able to speak to my peers as I was
Mm,
going through the course,
Mhm.
and have their sense of, what did this, you need somebody to balance what you've learned with your own experience. It's nice
hmm.
to talk with others. So what you've built into this is very unique, and I think it'll be very helpful and make a significant impression on people. Is that they can reach out to peers during on the
Hmm.
second and third level, and that human interaction that you're offering in terms of the coaching. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people that will help with their internal motivation in terms of being accountable to show up for those periods, the roundtables, and for working with their peers. I think they'll get a lot out of that, and it's very unique. And the price point that's being offered at is, very doable. I also think there's a great opportunity for your efforts in terms of maybe an outplacement opportunities for folks that need to
Ah.
repackage themselves, like we've
Hmm.
talked about.
I wondered about that too.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Eric, your point of like learning in solitude is an
Yeah,
interesting point because I think a lot of managers are very isolated. It's like
Yes.
higher up the chain you go, the more isolated you feel. And to have a community that they can even continue to be a part of after the 12 weeks, that's really the vision. They can come back and visit. They can hang out on a round table. They need a refresher. They've connected with colleagues outside the company. And I remember one time when I was sharing this model with a friend, she said, Joanne, the part I would like the most. And I was like, what? She goes, to have a private conversation with someone outside my company that no one else would know about.
There you go.
And
yeah.
you know what? That never occurred to me. And I realized the private, intimate conversations will help address blocks that other things cannot address. And to know that they're confidential is super important. And
Well,
Mhm.
Eric?
people. Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
with the live training that we're doing now in the webcast, we have about 20-25 people attending, whereas before we might have 3 to 4 that would come in person. And what we find is the instructors that I'm working with, you know, the folks will, if you open up the telephone line, they'll participate and they'll be very candid about their
Mm,
personal situation and actually seeking out help, and they're not bashful. So it's a great experience for everybody because they get to hear that they're not, like you said, most managers are in solitude. They're thinking this is just in my head.
yeah.
The situation we have right now, I've got there's some HR and there's some friction and stuff, and people are being real candid about it. And they're not believing it's the same situation in the other two companies. So they
Mm,
can balance it and go, oh, I'm not crazy. This is something that's going on in the
hmm.
environment today.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful. And I'm even wondering, Eric, with your, because it's broadcasting, something about technology maybe gives people more permission to be open. I wonder if they would be as open if they were physically sitting in the room. You know what I'm saying? It's like sending an email or a tweet.
Well, we
Right.
build things into it, Joanne, just like polling so people can be somewhat anonymous
Hmm.
and you can get direct feedback from them without them having to raise their hand in front of their peers.
Right.
So they can they can, you can ask them anything, they can poll, they can give you what their true thoughts are, and not be worried about any repercussions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very good. Eric has a very, very good model as well. Okay, Eric, thanks for that, and then we'll round out with Candy. Candy, your thoughts?
Well, I think we're all on the same track. Here's the buzzword in the NSA world, the National Speakers Association, is all the upper paid where the speakers that are put on the pedestals that are making a lot of money, they're doing what's called, can you see my fingers? I'm doing quotations, mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of roundtables, they're calling them masterminds.
Okay.
And Eric just gave a great idea, because yes, I think CEOs and upper management, it's lonely. It's just like Joanne, you and I being entrepreneurs. It's lonely, but we've remedied that. We've stayed in touch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be smart. This is just really an addition to the management intensive, is, hey, we can put you in a mastermind with people at your level.
That's a great idea.
Well, it's Eric's idea. I'm just adding on to it. But yeah, at your level, because Eric, I just got my master's 4 years ago, and I chose to go to class at University of Phoenix for that reason. I had to have that interaction. And Joanne, we had team assignments. So this is just some food for thought, because I love your management intensive. I can't wait to start selling it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's what I needed to add to my company. You and I already talked about that. But I would maybe add team assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So these managers or supervisors or inboards or whatever, I've never heard that onboarding. I think that's brilliant. But bringing and saying, hey, you've got your own team. You've got to work on this project together. You will be graded on your project as a team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
just give that some thoughts, because it is lonely.
Yeah, it also makes me think of even maybe co-mentoring within the groups. Like, it's not up to, if you're in a roundtable and you're with a group or mastermind, then you're gonna be connecting with other people in your group and not just with the coach as well. I mean, I think that's another cross connection, building community kind of thing that I think is best practices. So yeah, I think that's really a great idea.
So I consider using the word mastermind. Here's the other thing that I love most, a lot. No, I don't say most. I love the whole thing. But the management intensive is that there's tracking. I love that there's tracking, because that's where, I guess when people hire me, they love it. But there's really did it really make a difference? Unless I get an email that say, oh my God, everybody's referring to each other as their animal. Our communication is great. But I love the tracking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, you guys, I really appreciate you being on the call. I think there's been some really great insights extracted from our conversation. And my overall summary is, I think the work we need to do is as much about providing the product as it is helping to educate the decision maker. What do you think?
Definitely.
Yeah. And some more, and even some more. So, what I think would be useful if there were more, roundtables, expert roundtables, where we really talked about these kinds of things and invited decision makers or other HR peers to have more of these kinds of conversations, because I'm walking away thinking I just got a lot of insight just out of hanging out with you guys today. And and I think this is a really a significant validation of different perspectives. Like, I look at Janine and I look at Eric and I look at you, Candy, and very, very different. Your worlds are all very different. And yet there are some common themes. You're experiencing some of the same things, but you have unique insights because of the world that you live in and, the world of HR that you dance in. So I think it's just incredibly, incredibly useful. So I hope you guys found it valuable too, as well, just hanging out on the call. And I really appreciate your contribution.